Hey everyone, how's it going? So I'm here to talk about Dante's Inferno. This is a buddy read with Elena Macredina, and we are reading the entirety of Dante's Divine Comedy throughout the month of October, and we're going to be posting videos about each section. So the Inferno doesn't need much introduction, but it's Dante being led by Virgil, who's kind of his poetic idol, through hell. Just to look at every layer of hell. Hell is divided into 9 different circles, and just looking at the different punishments that people endure in hell. And I don't have too much to say about the Inferno. It's really easy to see why it's the most widely read and the most often taught and the most popular. Elena in her video compares it to Ovid's Metamorphoses, and it's definitely easy to see why. Because Dante meets all sorts of different characters throughout the Inferno. A lot of them are historical people, some of them are mythological people, and they all have their own stories that they talk about, that Dante talks about, and that you can go to the endnotes to read about. And so that makes reading it very engaging. And on top of that, I think that the sort of metaphorical resonances of the punishments that people endure in hell are pretty straightforward and easy to grasp. And so that makes it good for teaching in schools, so that it's not like the Purgatorio, which I've also just finished, where really kind of need endnotes to understand a lot of the imagery in it. But anyway, so there's that. And another reason I think that this is a perennially popular piece of literature over and above the other 2 sections of the Divine Comedy is because I think humans have a weird obsession with divine punishment. You know, and you can just look at the Divine Comedy and look at how detailed the punishments are in the Inferno, and almost gratuitous in a way. And then you read the Paradiso, which I'm going to be doing, and I suspect that it'll be much less vivid, and a bit less interesting to read for that reason, because it's a lot harder to make living in eternal bliss interesting than it is to make being eternally punished interesting. And I remember this in particular, I thought of this in particular because I took a class about Buddhism in my senior year of college, and the professor at one point talked about Buddhist conceptions of punishment, and when someone acquires too much bad karma, they will end up in a sort of hell, where they're being tortured, essentially, by manifestations of their own bad karma. And we didn't read any of these, but he told us that there are these long Buddhist tracts just explaining in vivid detail the tortures that these people go through. And it's incredibly hard for those people there to acquire any good karma to get out of them. But anyway, it's just interesting to me how humans are so obsessed with punishment. I'm not really sure why. It's because we like to, sit on our high horses and, make fun of other people for the horrible things that they did, as Dante does at times in the Inferno. Perhaps it's because on some level we think it might happen to us. I don't know. But it's just interesting. People are weird, I guess, is all I can really say in conclusion on this brief discussion of humans' obsession with punishment. But another thing that's cool about reading the Inferno is because out of the 3 sections, I think it's the one that's the most referenced in other works, not just literature, but in film and theater and other places. And I was thinking about this in particular because one of the reasons I think I found reading the Inferno so engaging is because one of my favorite TV shows ever is this mini-series. It's called Over the Garden Wall, and it has like 10 episodes, and each of them is only like 10, 12 minutes long. And it's for kids, but it's one of those kids shows that's made in such a way that it can be very much enjoyed by adults as well. It has a lot of depth and complexity to it, even in just 10-minute episodes. But I watched this video on YouTube a while back, where someone argued that Over the Garden Wall is essentially a modern retelling of the Inferno. and he went through each of the 10 episodes. There are 9 circles of hell, but then there's a 10th sort of upper layer where that's sort of just outside the gates of hell. So there are sort of 10 sections to it. And there are 10 episodes to over the garden wall. But anyway, I don't need to go in depth on that. But the Inferno is just so widely referenced, and I think that makes reading it also very interesting. But yeah, I enjoyed the Inferno a lot. It was weird because I remember reading a section of Harold Bloom's book, The Western Canon, where he talks about Dante and Shakespeare as the two sort of pillars of the Western canon, as the two centers of the Western canon. And he argues that Shakespeare is primarily where we go for entertainment, whereas Dante is primarily where we go for cognitive power, is I think how Harold Bloom puts it. Power of thought, it seems to be what he's referring to. And I kind of disagree to the extent that I thought the Inferno was immensely entertaining. In an intellectual way, I guess, but still, it was very entertaining, I thought. It also made me really want to read a lot of other books that the Inferno mentions and that Dante writes about. Horace, and Lucan, and Virgil. I want to reread the Aeneid now. Parts of the Bible and Arthurian romances. There are some figures from Arthurian romances that appear in the Inferno, and it made me want to read all of the sources for these things and all these authors. Sort of in that vein, I did the other day by translation of the Odes of Horace, and I'm liking it much more than the other translation of the Odes of Horace that I tried to read earlier this year. So yeah, anyway, those are my thoughts on the Inferno. I will leave a link to a long lecture series that I found about the entire Divine Comedy. There are several lectures for each of the 3 parts of the comedy, and I didn't actually end up watching all the ones for the Inferno. Elena, I guess, did, but they're each an hour long, so it's quite a time commitment. But anyway, yeah, I really enjoyed this. Yeah, anyway, I'm looking forward to making my video about the Purgatorio, and looking forward to reading the Paradiso. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Bye!